We all know that we escape into realms of fantasy all the time. I think everybody, almost everyone, does that. You have people who escape through means of books and comic books and that sort of a thing. You've got people who escape through video games, through anime. I just watched this documentary called Second Skin, which is basically what it boils down to is that it follows the lives of World of Warcraft players, and they're not just everyday World of Warcraft players who like log in for like an hour a day and then get bored like I do. These are people who are really obsessed with World of Warcraft. I mean, they probably spend about, I know there's a few people in the documentary who spent more amount of time on World of Warcraft every day than they actually did working or peeing or showering or anything else. World of Warcraft took up all of their life pretty much. They spent more time on there than sleeping and eating, which to me is just like going beyond the extreme for my particular taste. I'm more of a casual gamer, really. I spend about a couple hours here or maybe 1 hour there, but I never really got into the point where I would be locked into something and I would spend like 18 hours straight. That just to me seems like such an insane, ungodly thing to do. You're looking at these people, and they had gone so far into a virtual realm, a realm that isn't real, and they treat it like real life. They treat this as if it was real, and I began to look at it and I go, oh my god, because you start to look at this whole thing, and you begin to realize that could apply to my own life in some sense, not to that extreme, but oh my god, like I began to think about like what if anime didn't exist, like, you know, where would my life be? And I'm not all that obsessive of an anime fan. I honestly am not. I think in my videos I may come across more so than I am in actual real life because, you know, I'm actually talking about the stuff 24/7. And I started thinking about it, and I started looking around my room, and I've got a ton of like collectible stuff. I've got like I've actually have three Yuki Nagito. They're the same person, whatever. I've got about 3 Yuki Nagito figures. One of them was given to me by a friend who knew that I loved Yuki Nagito, and so they got me that figure, and I love them forever for that. It was really nice. I've got 3 of those. I've got 2 Rei Ayanamis. I've got all of these different like figures from all this different crap. I've got Star Trek figures. I've got Wally figures of things that touch me on a personal level for some odd reason. Not some of it was just silly because all of a sudden I ended up going like, oh, I love Yuki Nagito, so I was like, okay, every time I go to a convention, I'm gonna pick up a Yuki Nagito, and so I picked one up, and then it was fun. It's like something that I look back on and smile, honestly. But in a way, it's this kind of thing. I watch anime for the escapism of it. I do. It's like I can say that I'm going to become like critiquing about it, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to be judgmental about my anime and everything. But I honestly enjoy the bad stuff just as much as I do the good stuff. I waste time, so much time, not all that much actually, but I waste time watching bad anime just so I can dissect it. But on the inside, most of the time, I'm actually still enjoying it. Because for some reason, it's still bringing forth this world that I want to sink my teeth into. And to a degree, that can be healthy, but also on the other end of the extreme, that can be so terribly destructive. I mean, I've talked to people who are way more into the hobby than I will ever be. Like, just talk about it, and they're like, they buy hug pillows, and they're like, they talk about these characters as if they were actually real people, and it starts to disturb me a little bit when it starts to go over that particular hill, and it starts to be like, yeah, I do not want to be within the same category as you, and I know I'm not in the same category as you, but you're kind of disturbing me now with how far in you are. And that's part of the reason why my previous profile, which was named Kagami is My Lover, is no longer active, just because, like, I will shit you not, guys. I will honestly shit you not. There was a day when I logged in, and I was like, oh, really? My username is that? And it kind of made me cringe a bit. It did, because I was kind of like, it was meant as a joke, and it was a joke. And I thought it was funny at the time, and I was like, oh, it'd be funny to have a profile named after that. But then I realized, like, the actual connotations of that, and I was kind of looking at it going, fuck, that's kind of like, ugh, that kind of made me a little bit ill. And so that's why I have now my profile is great, which, you know, it's an even worse username. Anyways, back on topic. I've got to be serious about this subject, because it actually did deeply embed itself in me. And this movie, it's not particularly great, but it's a documentary that I'm probably going to end up doing a review of it just because I could analyze it and kind of go into more of a structured detailing of what the actual film itself implies. But it really hit me because some of these people are very seriously sick, and I would think that they would be seriously sick no matter what, that they would find some of their addiction if it wasn't for video games. They would either start drinking or start doing drugs or start fapping uncontrollably. They could like start doing anything. They could masturbate themselves to death for all I know. But to see them literally get into this virtual world and start talking about it like, yeah, there's limitless opportunities here, and it's just so open that I can do things here that I can't do in real life. This wide open plane, like in my job, I have a crappy ass job. In here, I'm a warrior, and I can cut off the head of an orc and then drink its blood and then taste it and just sitting here. These people would rather live in the World of Warcraft than in real life. Well, I can't really blame them. I would rather live in whatever the name of that particular alternative universe is, in EverQuest or in World of Warcraft. I'd much rather live in a amazing fantasy environment like that where there's like quite practically no ugly human characters whatsoever. It's like I would much rather live like, as I said, like in an anime or something where like everybody has huge eyes, and like one of those good ones that are like everybody has like huge eyes and everybody just looks absolutely perfect and there's like no skin imperfections whatsoever. But we are human beings and we live within an actual environment with air, with things around us that are real, and you can actually reach out and touch them and feel them. You don't get that in a in a virtual reality, or at least not yet. We don't have holodecks or anything of that sort. There was a positive end to this too, and I will actually say this in this particular case. There's a point where I can actually understand losing yourself in a virtual environment, and it was actually in the case of a handicapped individual that was in this film. And he wheels up, and I swear to God, I was like starting to get like, not really emotional, but it really hit me like, oh my God. And he said, this was my chance to really live. This was my chance to be somebody. I'm stuck in this wheelchair, and I can't speak. I can't actually talk. I can only move my fingers and my hands and everything. And so he has enough functionality that he can play World of Warcraft. He can play an MMORPG or a video game. And he was talking about it, and he said, in that world that's set up, I can be free. I can just walk. He said the basic functions of just walking and climbing within any sort of environment, even if it is completely synthetic, is to me, it's liberating. It's the most wonderful feeling you could possibly have, because I can't have that. I have people constantly taking care of me. This man is severely handicapped. And just to be able to have that experience, I am so thankful that online games exist and that gaming exists for me to live out a fantasy, to be able to live someplace else, even if it is only for a limited amount of time every day, to be able to live like that. And that struck me because I'm like, oh my God, I wonder how many people's lives, and this sounds really kind of weird coming from this particular perspective, but you know, how many people, we always talk about how destructive these sorts of things are, like video games and anime and comic books and whatever. Like, how many people's lives do they actually enrich? And I think it's probably just as many as they destroy. And, you know, you don't hear that from the Christian fundamentalists or the rah, we hate anime club, but you get what I'm getting at here. It's so beautiful to think that for somebody like that, it had opened a whole nother world for him. And I also related to this guy on a personal level because he had a bunch of anime figures and posters in his room as well. This is like, it's saddening to me to see like somebody who's like probably like, yeah, this would probably be like one of those guys I'd meet on the college campus and we'd start talking about Haruhi or something and how hilarious it is. And here he is, he's this incapacitated, he can't move or anything, handicapped man. That sounded horribly insensitive, but he has been given an opportunity to live a life through World of Warcraft and to communicate with people that won't judge him through the game, through World of Warcraft. And that's That's something special. And I'm just going to wrap up my thoughts here. They're all over the place, but wow, it really starts to get you thinking about fantasy and escapism, doesn't it? It's like how much it can contribute and how much